Hi, and welcome to this Sunday meditation. Today is the 11th of October. During the week, from Monday to Thursday to Saturday, we meditate on grace, and then since the month of end of September, I think every Sunday we have a meditation on life, a peaceful river. That's the theme of our church here in France. From September to June, we are going to be meditating every Sunday and in some house groups as well on this important theme about life, because we know that life is not very easy. And right now, the whole world is facing a pandemic, and many lives have been taken. Many people are crying today for the loss of a dear one. So I would like to read today Isaiah chapter 35, and we are going to start on verse 1. The verse 1 says this: "The desert and the dry land will be glad, the wilderness will rejoice and blossom like a crocus." So we are talking about restoration again and a new beginning for God's people. And even in the desert, He's going to create a spring of water. We're going to see it later. So, as we said in Isaiah chapter 40, 41, 42, 43, and 45, that God was encouraging His people by revealing Himself to them and telling them not to be afraid. Again, in this chapter 35, He's going to tell them not to be afraid. And so we know that life is not very easy at all, but we have to learn to trust this God that never changes, that will be the same, that is the same today, yesterday, tomorrow, and forever. So that's God's revelation to us. And the interesting thing here in this text is that salvation is being proclaimed by the prophet, and days will come to God's people, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstances. This salvation will come, and then he is encouraging his people in verse 3 and 4 by saying this: "Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear." Why? Your God will come. Your God will come. Some of you may know that I sing, I do some classic singing, and I do drum as well. And two things that we learn when we are involved with the monde of the theater, the world of the theater and of the singing, is that we need to stand on two legs. We need, if you have a feeble knee, and if you cannot sustain the weight of your body, it is very difficult to sing. So here, you cannot walk or run if your knees are not steady and if your hands are feeble. So that's what He's going to do. So He's going to strengthen the weak ones, and He's going to make sure that our knees will not give away, because we are going to walk for a walk. We're even going to run with Him. So He's going to strengthen us. How? He's telling us not to be afraid, but to be strong, because God will come. And that's the heart of this message, I believe. That's the heart of the message of the gospel. The gospel is about a God that comes to us. He said that in those chapters between 40 and 45 as well. I will come to you. And he's saying here, the prophet is saying at the end of verse 5, that he will come to save us. He's coming to us. He's also coming with a vengeance, because he's a righteous God. So if you are on the wrong side of the river, that is going to be really bad for you. But He's coming to save. He's coming to save. He's coming to bring salvation, to bring deliverance. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened. We sing that with Handel's Messiah. And the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. And when Jesus came, when he was here, this happened then. He brought healing to the body, but also to the soul and to the spirit. And listen to what chapter 6 says. Water will gush forth from the wilderness and streams in the desert. Very interesting. This morning we had the meditation, the preaching was done by Mr. Kierman, and he was talking about all these springs. Joel, Zechariah, Isaiah, they all talk about this. And Ezekiel talks about this river that comes from the throne of God. And another prophet will say that it comes actually from the city of Jerusalem. And it goes all the way to the sea, taking life and salvation and changing all over the way. And then in John chapter 7, Jesus says that to those who would receive his spirit, springs of living water would flow from their hearts. And then, of course, when you read the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, you see this river running through the city of the New Jerusalem. An angel tells John, come, and I'll show you the bride of the Lamb. And then when he looks, he sees the city of Jerusalem coming down. So the city of Jerusalem is the bride of the Lamb in Revelation. So this water is flowing from your heart, as Jesus said in John chapter 7. This is the big consolation for those people who are living in fear, because their lives were not easy. Life is not easy even for us, even now, even today. But we are not walking because, as I said before, as Isaiah is saying, our knees are steady now, they're fine now, so we can walk, we can run. And the text starts talking about the desert, and this spring of water is coming out of nowhere in this dry land. There is no desert, no dry land when Christ reveals himself to you. Though you are walking in a valley that is full of death and fear, Jesus can transform that in blessings for you. Spring of living water. And a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. And you probably know that Jesus, when he came, when he was walking here in this planet, he said, I am the way. Jesus is the way. Isaiah calls this the way of holiness. It is God's way, and God's way is Jesus. Walk in him. Jesus, all the way. There is no river of a spring of living water without Jesus. When he gives us his life, when he gives us his spirit, when he fills us with his love, the spring of living water will flow from our hearts. And you know that water, it's proper of water to run, to go down. It comes down from the mountains. I live near, my village is here in the Basque country, in the south of France. It's very near a big river called Adour, the Adour River. And you can go all the way up to the Pyrenees, to the mountains, and see where it comes from. And then many other rivers will join this big river called Adour that goes all the way to the sea here in the Basque country. And it's running, it's going down to the sea. And the river of God is taking healing to the nations. It is healing your life, your heart. That's why he's saying don't be afraid, because we have to come back to our theme. Life is not easy, but God is telling you today, don't be afraid. I'll come to you with salvation. And salvation here is the spring of living water that is flowing from your heart, and then it can flow from your heart today. At the end of this amazing chapter, it's written, but only the redeemed will walk there, on that way. And those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them. And sorrow and sighing will flee away. There's going to be no more tears, no more pain, says Revelation. We are talking about the kingdom of God, a God that will reign forever with his people. He's talking about the redeemed before the throne of the Lamb that we see everywhere in the book of Revelation. Every time that John has a vision of the Lamb sitting on the throne or standing on the Mount Zion and his people with him, they sing to him. They worship him, the one who is, who was, and is to come, the everlasting Son of God. So I pray that he will bless you today. He will touch your heart. And no matter the desert you are living in, he is going to bring springs of living water from your heart, because this water comes from the throne of God. God bless you.